Thank you so much. Gone but not forgotten. So, that's my cousin Regina. Mihal, well done. Appreciate everyone here tonight. I'm very jealous of that Human Rights Award. So, Annie, you have to share a little bit with me here. So, I'm good. As mentioned, I served in the House for 20 years, but prior to that, I served in the New York State Legislature for 12 years. One of my most favorite accomplishments was the passing of a bill that I wrote that required the teaching of the Great Hunger here in New York State curriculum, which to this day, it could be even at Regis, could be a surprise question on the Regis exam. And I presently am now at Denton's law firm, where full public disclosure, I am not an attorney, but my hourly rates will rival anyone here. It's incredible to be here with you all tonight. I want to thank IrishCentral for this award and for this incredible honor. I'm out of practice, by the way. I would speak off the cuff, but I'm out of practice. To the organizers of this event tonight and to this remarkable community represented here this evening, I'm genuinely humbled to be with you all. When I think about the journey that brought me here this evening, I often go back to Queens, to a small house in Woodside, full of big Irish personalities where the stories were loud, the music was louder, and the values ran deep. I've held a few titles in my life, but one I'm especially proud of is Irish American. All four of my grandparents came from Ireland, from Cavan, County Louth, and my mom, who was born in County Armagh. Carrying with her not much, I'm sure, in her little pockets, but with a deep sense of who she was. In our home, Ireland wasn't a faraway place. It was woven into how we understood the world. And music was often at the heart of it all. Some of my fondest memories are of sitting around our living room singing old Irish folk songs with our family. Those songs told a story. They weren't just about entertainment. They were about history, a history that was alive and that was breathing. I've passed some of those songs on to my own children, our children, our children's Cullen, Kenzie, and Liam, who are raised with a strong sense of their heritage and community, and the belief that a shared song can bring people together in ways words alone sometimes cannot. And funny enough, those lessons have shaped my politics too. Music broke down walls for me. It creates common ground. It reminds us that before anything else, we're all people, with stories and connections strong enough to bridge even the widest divides. My parents also instilled in my siblings and I, and three of them were here this evening, the only three siblings I have. My sister Maura, my sister Eileen, and my brother Sean, who is an attorney. And I'll speak about him a little bit more later on. Like his father before him, my father served as a New York City police officer. But after graduating from St. John's Law School, he became a detective. In our house, public service wasn't an abstract idea. It was simply what you did. As a kid, I thought my path would be either following in his footsteps or joining the priesthood like one of my two uncles that were priests. But life had other plans for me, and my wife, Casey Crowley, had a big part of that. We'll talk about that later, too. But another uncle, my Uncle Walter Crowley, whose two children are here tonight, Regina and Patricia, was also a St. John's Law School graduate, was serving on the New York City Council. And when I volunteered on that campaign, I was hooked. Public service became the passion I didn't know that I was looking for. My wife Casey and I tried to pass those same values on to our children. Our oldest son, Cullen, who we lost this year after a courageous battle with cancer. embodied them in everything he did.
We got this down.
He was a proud Irish American and a proud U.S. Marine, driven by his deep sense of duty, something larger than himself. His service, his character, and his love for his heritage are with me, Casey, Kenzie, and Liam every day. And they are a constant reminder of why public service matters and why it is worth dedicating our lives to it. My parents also encouraged us to see the world through the lens of justice. My family was steeped in the history of the Troubles, and it shaped our understanding of civil rights, both in Ireland and here in America. I remember reading about the peaceful marches of 1968 and seeing their parallels with our own civil rights movement. The nationalist community identified with leaders like John Lewis and Dr. King, and that connection helped me appreciate the universal struggles for dignity and the rights of mankind, whether in Belfast or in Birmingham, or in Queens County or County Armagh. Years later, I had the honor of serving in Congress with John Lewis, who became a dear friend. He knew all of our children. You know the saying, you never meet your heroes? Well, with John, that simply wasn't true. He was every bit the extraordinary person you had hoped he would be. John and I shared a common bond, a deep belief in immigration reform. He saw it as one of the civil rights battles of our lifetimes, and I shared that with him as well, and it was deeply personal. As a son and grandson of immigrants, I know how central immigration has always been to our national story. But our current system is failing both our needs and our values. And I'll be honest, there were moments when the work felt uphill, when people told us reform would never happen and would never happen in our time. And they may have been right. We didn't get across the finish line, but the need still remains as urgent as ever. And I remain optimistic that we will see progress someday. That optimism comes from what I learned in that fight. And that is that progress takes perseverance, as you know. And coalitions certainly matter. When communities come together, when they find shared values and shared humanity, they can move mountains. And I will tell you, there are no better coalition than the Irish American community. Their leadership, their moral clarity, and their willingness to build bridges were indispensable. And I'm confident they will continue to be at the forefront of any future progress we make on immigration reform. And that's because Irish Americans are in a unique position today. Our history, from labor organizing to public service to neighborhood activism to the men and women in our armed forces who pay the ultimate sacrifice to maintain our democracy. It is a part of a blueprint for how communities can find common ground. That tradition can help us connect with newer immigrant groups, with younger Americans, and without anyone trying to find their place in American society and our American story. Every generation of Irish Americans has found its way to lead. Today's young people are stepping up on the issues like immigration, justice, climate change, with the same passion and determination that fueled the leaders before them. During my time in the House of Representatives and in Congress, I learned that true leadership is never about yourself. It's about listening, building trust, and ensuring others feel heard. I made it a priority to ensure that every voice mattered, especially on the toughest issues. That's a lesson I'd pass on to any young Irish American considering public life and the mentorship that I'm involved in as well. I sincerely believe that you need to lead with humility and never forget where you came from. And it's because of that upbringing, because of those values, that I feel compelled, strongly compelled, about this moment and speak about this moment in our democracy. As a nation, we're being tested. Our democratic institutions, the ones generations built before us and defended are facing pressures unlike anything we've ever seen in modern times. And when those institutions are threatened, whether by political intimidation, misuse of power, or efforts to undermine the rule of law, our public and private leaders must stand up. We all must stand up. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the refusal to cower when something essential is at stake. And our democracy is essential. Just as past generations stood firm in their time and gave their lives for it all, we must consider the same. So tonight, receiving this award is deeply personal for me. It honors not just my work, but the story of my family and of so many families that have come before us. It honors the bond between Ireland and America, a bond built on shared history, shared struggle, and shared values. And I want to thank in particular my wife, Casey, who has stood by my side through all my years in Congress, and my success would not have been the success that I had without her strong, incredible values. And I also want to thank my brother Sean. My brother Sean oftentimes is in the background, but he is an attorney. So maybe in the future, if there's one of those awards you might want to think about. Because the one thing the Crowleys come with, we're like rent-a-crowd. You honor one of us, and we all kind of show up. So it's a smart value. But Sean has always been by my side as well and has been a rock for me. And he does so much for the Irish American community here in New York and oftentimes goes unrecognized. So I want to share this lifetime achievement with my brother Sean. Sean, I get it for the first year. I'll give it to you next year. I'll leave you with this. Our power is strongest when we stay engaged, when we stand up for our values and our beliefs, and carry forward the spirit of community that has always defined who we are. I want to thank you once again for this award. And as maybe we have a little, you're going to get a little free entertainment as well tonight as well. I want you to know, at no additional cost to you all, but maybe at great personal expense to my own reputation. So, hold on a minute. Okay, so once again, thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, Joe, for that moving speech. It reminded us of the humanity behind some of our Congress people that we often lose sight of today, and it's a humanity shared by all of the honorees. Like I said, I'm not an attorney, but even I know not to stand between an attorney who's been called to the bar. Sorry about that. I do have another one, but I'll only tell it if you want me to tell it. I woke up at 4 o'clock the other morning thinking about this, thinking, how am I going to make a room full of lawyers and their families laugh? And, my wife kept kicking me, kind of, will you go back to sleep, go back to sleep? But the kernel of a joke was forming, so I said I'll try it anyway. You might want to turn off the camera in case Liam hears this and wonders what the hell it has to do with tonight. But I was thinking about lawyers and how, and any profession, when you're in the profession so long, you tend to kind of narrow your perspective and think of everything through the lens of your professional career. It's not hard to understand that. I mean, if you think about it, if you go to a surgeon with a problem, he's going to want to operate. You go to a lawyer with a problem, they're going to want to litigate. You go to your barman down the street with your problems, he's going to want you to libate. And you go to your wife with your problems, and she's just going to tell you to go master the art of self-indulgence. Thank you. I can't wait to tell my wife that this was well received. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all the honorees, their families, their guests. You've made it a truly inspirational and fun evening. We're going to have a fun moment from Joe, who's going to sing for us. And then afterwards, we're going to ask the honorees to come together for a photograph with Dara. But first, my pleasure, Joe. Bring it home,
Clap
Joe.
yet. No, not yet.
All right for that?
Come on.
Yeah.
So I'll do this to this tune. Real connection was after the 2016 election, and for me it was a very depressing night, but for a lot of reasons. But I had written a song, and I wanted to record it, and so I went down to Philadelphia, and I had the opportunity to record it. But we had extra time, so the engineer said, "What else should we do?" And I said, "I always wanted to record a song that, as a little boy, I was just enchanted with." It was written by a man who came to America. He was born in 1895, came to America around the same, my grandfather, Crowley, was born around the same time, came to America around the same time. Both became New York City police officers. I don't know if they ever met. I never had the opportunity to ask my grandfather. This individual wrote a song about the county that he came from and how much I longed to go back there. And he eventually was killed in a stick-up on 93rd and 3rd, and was killed in a bar, having lunch, and two men came in and stuck it up, and he was killed there. But about 15 or so years later, or 20 years later, that poem that he had written about his home county was put to song by a fellow named Larry Cunningham. And it was #1, I think in the summer of '65 or thereabouts, for quite a few weeks in the summer of '65 in Ireland. And it displaced the Beatles for that period of time. Even in Ireland, no one could displace the Beatles. And it was on a 45, and my grandparents had it in Rockaways, and they had the record player, and I was like 5 or 6 years old, and they knew how to work it, and I would just play it over and over and over again. And there was something about this particular song was the yearning that this man had to wanting to go back to Ireland, wanted to go back to the island that he loved so much. And so the song is called Lovely Leitrim. Now, I don't do the Larry Cunningham version. I do it a little differently, because I always thought that this song was more of a yearning song. It wasn't a happy song. It was more of a, I really want to go home, and I can't. After I recorded it, I came back to Congress, and I was in the back of the chamber. And a fellow who I knew from the other side of the aisle, named Mike Fitzpatrick, was retiring because he had brain cancer. His brother, Brian Fitzpatrick, actually is in Congress and replaces him. And I said to Mike, as he was leaving, I said, "Mike, all these years I never asked you where your family was from in Ireland." He said, "Well, Joe, all my family's from Leitrim." And I said, "That's funny. I just recorded like one of my all-time favorite songs, Lovely Leitrim." And he said, "Joe, my uncle wrote that song." That is a true story. And it's just remarkable. So but I do a little different versions. My sister Eileen likes it. Last night I had a pleasant dream. I woke up with a smile. I dreamt that I was back again in dear old Erin's Isle. I thought I saw Loch Allen's banks in the valley down below. It was my lonely Leitrim where the Shannon waters flow. I stood enchanted by the scene of grandeur and delight. I headed off for Carrick Town before the dark of night. I passed Sheemore, that fairy hill where the flowers wildly grow, and I saw the grave of Fimacoo where the Shannon waters flow. Give you a little shorter version. and I've traveled far in this great land from the east unto the west. But of all the islands I've seen, I love my home the best. And if ever I return again, there's one place I will go. It will be to lovely Leitrim, where the shadow waters flow. It will be too lovely Leitrim, where the shadow